It makes it way too bright.
The dining room light?
Yeah, it makes it too bright. Turn on different lights or something, or I don't know. I don't. It just glares, right? Oh my lord. Okay. Oh, look at it now. That looks terrible. Oh lordy, lordy. I need lighting. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
You too.
Is that better lighting? Not really. I don't know. Oh, what's that lighting like? Terrible. Isn't it?
I don't know.
Oh. Well, you have to let me know. So what is the day today anyway? Check, check, check. Mic is working. Huh?
March 8th.
Okay, are you on?
Yeah.
Hello? Hello? Check, check, check. Ooh. Okay, you're going to have to get him a bottle, please. Okay? Just give him the Pediasure. Did you hear me?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Everybody's up. What's new, pussycat? Yeah. Yeah, everybody's up. What's new, pussycat? I don't know whose schedule is on whose schedule, but somebody's on somebody's schedule around here. View your channel. Okay, so let's click on this. See what's going on. Oh, putting those ads in. Okay.
There we go. There it is.
Yeah, let me know if it's hearing okay. Ooh. Right.
Well, what if they want to give me an ad like in the first 5 minutes?
I know. I just turned on.
Yeah, it's working.
I'm at work. It's 7:21 a.m. here in the morning, Judy. Tammy, right? It's 4:22 a.m. in the morning where I am. The kids are up. What's new, pussycat? Are you on, Andre?
Yeah.
And you can hear no lagging, no looping, none of that crap?
No.
Okay. So, yeah, I don't know whose schedule is on whose schedule. I fell asleep as usual because normally I'm working at this time, and I'm always hoping the kids are sleeping, but it's a hit and miss, especially with Amari, right? I guess Amari was napping when I was sleeping, and Andre took a nap. So, of course, when I woke up, soon after Amari woke up, you can hear he's gearing up in here, and Andre's up because he had his little nap. So, it is what it is. So, anyway, I'm trying to stay positive, okay? I got a lot of men around me, Tammy. Men for days. Men. That's a lot of manpower. You know what I'm saying? And, but the problem is, and I want to talk about the foundation. Now, I'm really hardwired because I've been like lifting and moving, and right? You've been watching my videos. So, I was working with James' son yesterday. He came to the house and he helped me out for a little while, and he worked really well. Really, we did what needed to be done. He followed the directions great, and we got a lot done. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. So he's going to come back in a couple of 2-3 days, continue working with me. And like I told him about, you got my food buckets and stuff, and like I'm a little cuckoo, right? One of those cuckoo food preppers, right? But it's all good because we're going to start a little cooking class, eh? And he goes, "Oh, I really want to do that, right?" And I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's what we're going to do, because there's a lot of hungry people in the province of British Columbia, Canada, with no means to put down roots out here. Like, I'm getting people hitting me up to rent a small little. They're begging me, they're pleading with me. They're either calling me Mama Lynn or Judy, right? Can I, do you have a little room, just a little space? They're not even asking for a room. They're just asking for a little space to rent because they don't have no housing. There's no affordable housing out here. And yeah, if you want to go rent a mattress and share that mattress with 2 or 3 other people, I suppose you could rent that for $400 and then have a what? Communal kitchen, a communal bathroom with 12, 15, 16, 20 other people living in that housing unit, all sleeping together on mattresses from spot to spot to spot. Like, since when does that even become legal in a industrial society, right? It would be different if we were living in some, I suppose, third world country where the poverty level is to the point where you're either in the 1500s living in England in the slums where you got 7 people stacking and packing in the boroughs, in a one room, whatever you want to call it, from room to room to room to room to room to room. Well, those landlords in those days were raking in the dough as the people were dying inside their little rooms, right? Because of the way that situation breeds illness. And like it's almost like it's coming down to that here in Canada. And it's so negligent from a government's perspective to keep bringing in more vulnerable people, right? When it comes to immigrants. Andre, get him a bottle. He's crabbing for something. Andre,
Yeah.
please get him a bottle. Just give him a Pediashirt. I told you earlier to give it to him. He's gearing up. Okay, he's not going back to sleep anytime soon. Oh my God, and neither is Andre. Oh wow. Anyway, okay.
Once I take a power nap,
You had a power nap. I know. Clearly, Amari did too. Okay, so now we're getting real close to calling a meeting to form a committee in relation to the foundation, right? And once that committee is formed, housing is going to be at the top of the list. It just has to be, because so many people, a lot of men, right, are just not, there's no housing. It's not like the good old days where you could go get yourself a little apartment for $500 and maybe have a roommate, right? Or even live there by yourself. Those same apartments that were renting $500 10 years ago, $600 for 10 years ago, a little 1-bedroom basement suite or whatever, they're like 15, anywhere from, I'd say, 13 to $1,800 a month, depending on where it's located and the condition of it and yada yada, right? And for most people, that's impractical. They just, unless of course they're making good money. But not everybody makes good money. And even if you're making good money with the cost of inflation and all this crap, yada yada, it's just, yeah. So I've got these men and women. There's actually a woman in there was asking me to rent out something, right, because of the house and my situation with the basement, yada yada. So it's not just men. And yesterday, just a little space, not asking for a room, just asking for a little space. And I'm like, well, I can't do that right now because I'm too busy sorting out my own life and, liquidating and downsizing or whatever it is that I'm doing, scattering things around, and my problem is as I'm doing that, for me, in the back of my mind, I'm either a mother still after all these years, or I'm operating as a grandmother with grandkids in mind. In other words, it's hard for me to throw out toys because I've got little grandkids that can play with them. It's hard for me to throw out craft material, even if it's just, as some people would call it, garbage or junk, where I see it as material to make a craft with, whether it's making snowflakes so that we can make a mobile. I'm just using that as an example. Or whether we need that paper, whether it's for making masks, because, I want to make masks, right? I don't know if you can see that. You've seen in my other videos, like, make masks, right? So, I'm reluctant to throw out those kind of things because in my mind, I'm either going to be making masks with my grandkids or maybe through program development for spiritual healing, if you want to call it that, um, as, as a form of program development to help people to ground themselves so that they don't go nuts as they basically live in squalor and face homelessness, or are already homeless with no prospect of finding a home, right? And that's frightening to have to be facing that type of situation, even if you're working. The way they geared the society in Canada, you got to have a lot of money in order just to maintain whatever it is that you're trying to maintain, with the naysayers coming into your life, because everybody's got those that in their life. Everybody's got somebody that's trying to sabotage them to one degree or another, right? And so you're always having to you know how it goes, right? So anyway, all I know is that I'm still working on the foundation. That's why I said let's talk about the foundation. And whatever it is that I've been doing with my neighbors next door, has been a form of program development, right? And the more people get to know me and yada yada, the more they're, I guess, formulating in their own minds that there is a possibility to build on something, whether to make a difference for themselves or whether to make a difference for their friends, or maybe whether to make a difference just for the collective society. I don't know. All I know is that I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing for the greater goal. Are you talking?
Huh?
What's that noise?
What noise?
Is that Amari chewing on the bottle?
Yeah.
Oh, tell him not to chew on the bottle. That's Amari.
It's almost done drinking his bottle.
Yeah, okay. So, whatever I'm trying to do here at the house in terms of program development, I don't care if it's mask making. Why do you need that bag of paper? That's trash. Well, no, I can either use it to pack up something to put in the mail to sell, like if I sell a little something, a teacup. I got this little teacup. I'm going to sell this little teacup. Somebody wants to buy it, but they want it in the mail because they live far away. So I take that paper and I wrap it up, right? And I put it in a box and I mail it out. Or somebody wants to make masks. I got 4 people that want to make masks, including Andre, right? And a little Amy and Kyrie. I'm just saying. So I got the kids, the little teeny kids, and the older, like the teenagers. Andre's a teenager, right? And then maybe a couple of adults that want to make masks. Now, not everybody's going to sit down at the same time and make the mask. They'll do it within intervals when they're around, right? So Valea May and Kyrie start making a mask. They'll start their mask, and then we just put it off to the side. And then when they come back, they can pick up and continue working on their mask. Well, that applies to everybody else. So I need that paper in my head. So I keep that paper. I'm just using that as an example. And then I got it in a big ass plastic bag, which takes up space, which gets me into trouble because people don't understand how I think. They don't understand how hardwired I am to bring wellness, health and wellness, and an equilibrium where you have a sense of, I don't know, self-worth, security, peace of mind, um, hope, just right, the more positive feelings, so that by the time you finish making your mask, you're feeling like, damn, that looks nice. I like that. I think I want to do another one. And I'm actually pretty good at it. And then your friends come and they look at that. Well, where did that come from? Well, I made that. No, you didn't make that. There's no way. You're a fucking retard. Sorry, you're a boo-boo retard. You couldn't make a mask like that. Why are you lying to me? No, I did. I really did. You can ask so-and-so. I made that mask. And then that friend or foe or whatever, oh, really? Oh, well, maybe that person will get jealous because they can't make the mask, or maybe they will actually appreciate that their friend or their foe, because you don't know sometimes who you're dealing with. They're smiling up in your face when in fact they're a freaking foe. You know what I'm saying? So if somebody comes and says, you didn't make that mask, that, blah, it's a nice mask, but there's no way you could have done it. Clearly that person's not beside standing with you. That person is a foe, right? But that person who made the mask can walk away knowing that they made that mask. And if they want, they now have a little bit of skills in there to go off and make another one. And you never know that. Just giving them that one or two times with that experience where they can do something like that and they find out that they're good at it and they really like it, that's a skill that they can carry through with them for the rest of their lives. And it might be that little bit of something where it gives them the ability, I guess you could say, to support themselves, because now everybody wants to buy their masks. That's how my brain thinks, right? I'm not gaining anything from it outside of knowing that I helped somebody to be able to discover a skill, a gift that maybe that they had that was dormant, and they just didn't know that they had it until they actually sat down and started putting it together and let it come together on its own time. You see, that's the thing about homeschooling. Okay, that's what homeschooling taught me. You got two kids. You put the same book in front of each kid at the same time in terms of age, approximately, right? One kid's going to pick up that book and is going to absorb that book, going to eat up that book for knowledge, will use that book until there's nothing left to use because they've outgrown that book, because they fully understand it and gained everything that they needed to gain before they go on to the next book, right? That's called self-education, being self-taught, right? That's like picking up a dictionary, starting with the first word of A and going through the whole dictionary and teaching yourself how to read and understand the English language. I'm just using that as an example, right? Where the other kid, you put the same book in front of them at approximately the same age, and they're just got their heels in the ground and they got their nose up in the air and they're turning, I don't want it, it's boring, it's blah, it's this and that, and they're stubborn, and they will be like that for years. And then they come back and they blame you and they say, well, you didn't force me to do it. Well, I didn't force the other one to do it. And if you notice, the other one ended up becoming a freaking genius. So how can one become a genius and the other one's on a constant pity party? Like it doesn't compute. You know what I'm saying? Sooner or later, at some point, somebody's going to have to take some personal responsibility for their growth spurts, for their own milestones, right? So it's the same kind of principle with the mask. Do I expect everybody to be a professional mask maker? I'm just using masks as an example because I got bags of paper downstairs that if people came and, why are you saving, hoarding paper, blah, why you got this and why? Well, because I'm thinking about the day when somebody's going to sit down. I don't know who it is yet, but I know somebody will sooner or later, and they're going to be making masks and they're going to be flipping through that bag and they'll go, oh, I can take this. And before you know it, that bag, it will be freaking empty. And then they'll be asking for more materials to make more masks. So I hang on to it because in my mind, I have that vision. So, but with that vision comes, what's it called? Determination, self esteem, because you're doing something. And once you're done and you feel proud of it, your self esteem goes up. And once you're there with that self esteem, if you want to do it again, you can do it again with or without me. In other words, wherever you go in life, that's going to follow you. And you never know, that person might end up becoming famous from making masks because somebody took the time to give them that little opportunity to do it in a nonchalant kind of, here, we're just doing that today. We're making masks because James's son, when he was helping me yesterday, yesterday, I'm like, take this bag, it's just full of paper, just take it down to Tisha's room, aka business room, but it's not a business room anywhere, we just call it Tisha's room. Just throw it in there for now, we'll sort out that room later, because that's crafts, mostly crafts in there, right? And it piling up, and I'm like, don't worry about it, because we're going to make masks one day. He goes, masks? I go, yeah, masks. Sooner or later the living room's going to be cleared out, and if you want to make a mask, you have what you need to do that. Not costing me anything except putting up with the in my ear at this point. And he goes, oh, I really like to make masks. I really want to do that. I think that would be fun. I said, exactly. So with that said, it's all foundation related, mother related. I'm still in mother mode. Obviously, I'm in grandmother mode. Little AMA can make a mask. Kyrie can make a mask. Andre can make a mask. Those are my grandkids. Mother mode, well, I don't expect Marcane to make a mask or Tisha to make a mask. If anything, they'll be just telling me that I'm, being foolish by hoarding paper. I'm just saying. But now that Marcane's becoming a father, his feelings might change later on in life. It depends. It depends on how much he's stuck on money, because, some people just get stuck on money and forget about those, I don't know what you call them, the finer things in life, the things that are supposed to bring money. Doesn't bring pleasure. Money is like cocaine. People do cocaine, they get that high, they're high, right? And then they crash. And when they crash, they feel like crap. They beat themselves up, for especially the addicts, right? You know what I'm saying? They when they're high, they don't think about, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. It's not going to make me feel good when I, sober up, or it's a habit. It's turning into a habit. It's sucking up my money. It's distracting me from the more important things in life. But when they're doing the drugs, they don't think about that until they crash. And then when they crash, they get depressed, right? And it just adds on to the depression if they can't break away from it. That's what money, I find, does to people who chase money, who put all their eggs in one basket when it comes to their quote unquote self-esteem, when they build it around money, right? Where me, the self-esteem that I like to build is around the personality and the character and the spiritual balance, equilibrium of the human being. We'll just say mask making helps to do that, right? To just to ground the person where they're not chasing the high, whether it's the cocaine high or whether it's the money high, in order to fill that void in themselves, right? Sometimes you have to fill the void in yourself with the more simpler things in life. So, I've got bottles, like, wine bottles, the colored bottles, whatever kind of bottles. I have a few of those kicking around. And I said, take that down to the craft room, like Tisha's room, right? Because that's crafts. Because I got bottle cutters, right? So maybe you might not be good at making masks, but maybe you might be good at making cutting bottles with a bottle cutter, right? And you can do a few things with that. You can cut a wine bottle down to a certain size, take a tool that puts a hole into the bottle at the bottom so that you can use it as a plant holder for certain types of plants, right? Right? Or you can make homemade lanterns with them. Those after you cut the bottle, right? Like it's okay. I'm just saying, in terms of a craft, the craft parts comes from just being a mom for so many years. So through it all, though, it's program development. Either or, it doesn't matter. So whatever I'm going to be doing here over a period of time is going to be written down, and then hopefully we'll put an application, like a grant, put in a grant application. That's the long term. So the short term is to continue working on program development, whether it's simple like mask making, or whatever, or long term, some sort of housing initiative or a community center, right? Where that mask making and anything else that I maybe can accomplish while I live here, working on what I'm working on, as I'm bringing together people to formulate a committee to help push the envelope, right? Which is the paperwork, the the logistics around it, where when it comes time to write for a grant, we can honestly say that we've already been working on program development. Because you can't write a grant saying, well, I want to do this, this, and this, and this, without really being able to show that you've done it already or that you're in the process of doing it. Okay. So, in regards to housing, when I got people approaching me pleading for just a little space because they've got nowhere to go when it comes to quote unquote affordable housing, that is something that definitely needs to be developed and put forward in terms of a grant to get a location where you can house people reasonably without expecting them to be sleeping on a mattress side by side with strangers simply because somebody slapped down a few $100s to rent that freaking mattress. Right? Because as it is, that's all these people got. My son Brooks, he rents those houses. He rents like rooming houses or whatever they're called, right? He says, in the living room, they throw down a big ass mat like the Punjabis. They throw it out even in the living room. So if they got 4 bedrooms, every bedroom's got a big ass mattress on the floor, blah 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 blah, and everybody's sleeping on it. And they'll even put mattresses in the living room and have 3 or 4 of them sleeping on that mattress. Yeah, and that's not that should be illegal. Canada is an industrial country. There's no reason for that. We got people living in cars out here, living in just wherever they can live. And it's been like this for years, and it's getting worse and worse and not better. So being that I'm around a lot of people that are facing that, including myself, right, with whatever's going on in my life, the more things come together in the basement in terms of quote unquote program development, the more I'm going to encourage the committee. I'm not sure who's going to join the committee because I need serious minded individuals for that, right? I don't want no willy nilly, can't focus, just, got that verbal diarrhea, all talk but no walk. It's not what I'm looking for. We need serious people that can write serious. I can write, somebody else can double check. However, I'm not going to rely on AI. I've been thinking about it. Why should I try and use a program to write like AI program, to write a proposal for a grant and put all my eggs into that one basket when I already know from experience what the community in my local area needs when it comes to housing, and write it myself, right? And then somebody can proofread it for me and top it off and fill in the blanks or whatever it is, right? You know what I'm saying? So at some point, I would suspect that I will attempt to write a grant application just to show people that I'm serious and that I can do it. And if I can do it, there's somebody in there that can also do it, or at least clean up whatever I made so it's presentable. And then we just move the envelope, put the grant forward. My goal is that in a nutshell, my goal is for as long as I live in this house, because I really do, I really consider myself to be blessed, even though I have a lot of angst in my life and a lot of negativity. And, I feel like people are trying to destroy my life, even though I have all that going, I'm in a very unique position. Um, I don't take it for granted. Obviously, I don't like getting stuck with the high rent and yada yada yada, but I'm maintaining right now. Um, I'm still fighting the good fight via through the foundation, whether it's in mother mode, grandmother mode, or community activist mode. It doesn't matter. I'm thinking all the right thoughts for the youngest to the oldest within the community to make it better for everybody involved, except for the naysayers, because they just want to hurt everybody and are stuck on that high to get more money for themselves, because it's like a fix, right? The more money you get, right, you're feeling good. And then when the money stops coming in, right, you're crashing. You're coming down off your high and you're depressed. So you got to go out and hurt somebody else to get more money, right? Because you got the more money, so now you're feeling high again. That's not me. That's not where I get high off of. I get high off of seeing people making masks or plant little holders with bottles that are smoky glass, so that they're, when they walk away and they have whatever it was that they made, and they feel good about it, and they know that they can make it again with or without me being around. And God knows, who knows what they will do with it in the end, in a lifetime. It might become their choice of craft, the craft of choice, right? And might even make good money at doing it. Um, that's where I get satisfaction from. Hmm. And people don't like that. People don't understand it, and a lot of people don't like it. But that's their problem, not my problem. So I'm in a very unique position where, as long as I can maintain, hold down the fort, uh, you know, keep keep the ship steered to that island, I suppose, or continent somewhere, because I'm out in sea, right? You know, where the land is good in terms of, once you dock and you come off and you go onto the land, there's opportunity there, right? That's where I'm at with things. Um, And that's when we're going to be pushing for a community center, uh, some sort of housing initiative, because that's the big one. Can you give him a toy? See if he's laying on
Yes,
something.
ma'am. Already has a toy.
Yeah, having issues with still having to go poo. We've been giving him laxative, but it hasn't been working. So, it disturbs me when I have people pleading with me to give him a little space. And I'm like, well, I can't. I'm not in a position to do that right now. Right? Do you know how easy it would be for me to empty out that basement and rent it out to so and so, so and so, and so and so, and so and so? It'd be so easy. But it's not going to solve any problems. It solves a problem for 4 people short term. We'll just cap it at 4, right? It solves, but that's only short term. Once this house is done with, where are they going to go after that? Right? As if they're going to find another location that's affordable. Next time they might have to have 8 in the house in order just to be able to afford what they were paying here with 4 of them. That's not reasonable. There's no future in that. Mm-mm. Um, so I don't feel bad for saying no at this point to them, because I first of all, I have to sort out my own life, even if it's just paper in a bag for crafts. And I have to think about the bigger picture that not only affects the people that I'm around, whether I'm working with them or not, right? In terms of like on a foundation perspective, but I also have to think about my own family. And their prospects, right? Like Andre, he's not going to be able to afford to live in a 1-bedroom basement suite on his own, or a 1-bedroom apartment on his own. The government's outpriced him. They've already said go past go and straight to jail. Yeah, basically. Everything else in between is insignificant, right? So I'm going to stay focused on the good fight, continue working on program development. I got my table now. This table's going to stay upstairs, right here. What I'll do is I'll take out the leaf at some point and I'll just make it smaller, because I needed a table downstairs so I can continue sorting stuff out, right? And just put my focus on a center point. So James brought the table he liked, right? Because I said, "Oh, just bring me one of those long ass ones." He ended up bringing me a big square one. Put it in there in the living room yesterday for me with his buddy. And I said, "Oh, gee, James, I guess that, yeah, you're right. That's the better choice." It's not a table that I'm familiar working with when it comes to quote unquote sewing, but I'm sure I can get used to it. I'll show it to you. So we've got our sewing table now downstairs. So that's good, but we won't be sewing anytime soon because I still have to sort things out, right? And I'll just be using that table to put things on so that, I can figure out what we're going to do or whatever. Um, I have lights, lights, hanging lights, lamps, those kind of things. The parts where the light bulb screws in, some of them need their parts changed. So that table can be used for that, right? Versus go off and buy new light fixtures, just fix the ones that we have. So that's what will go onto the table first, are all the lights, and find somebody that can help me to change the light fixtures because I don't see very well anymore, right? And so that we can have lights, whether for sewing or whatever. When it comes to piecework, if we get to that point, I'll probably just see who wants to sew, who can sew, and maybe just pay them for the piecework, cut a deal, and then, like, if we do rags, which I know would sell, right? Take a little bit of that money off the top after your expenses, and you pay the person that made them, can go into the foundation, so that when you put your grant forward towards whoever you put a grant forward for whatever, you can show that you got a little bit of an income coming in through, like, do-rag sales. We'll just use that for example. Get these guys to come in, and somebody can come in, and once they know I'm more serious, right, they can start marketing the Mayor X hats. Where am I? They can start marketing the Mayor X hats, right? I'm just saying. And that will generate money for the nonprofit, right? Which can help go towards housing, whatever that housing is. All I know, it's not going to be a mattress with 3 people sleeping on it from room to room to room, including the living room, because that's not a quality of living. And this is where the public needs to stand up. And if you use the word fight the government, then you become an enemy of the state. But if you use the word lobby the government to change that situation, then you become a lobbyist. Right? I guess it all depends on the words that you use when you approach the government to bring change, so that the quality of living for the people in the country can change. You know what I'm saying? Right? I need a webmaster, somebody that can work on the, where am I? Somebody that can, see, I don't see, right? It's all blurry for me. Somebody that can work on the website, right? While we still have it. So that's what I'm thinking about. Giving a room or even a little space to 1 or 2 little people in terms of a small crowd isn't going to help the larger collective. And then sooner or later, whatever it was that I could have done for them on a short-term notice would be nothing more than a drop in a bucket, and they'll be finding themselves back in the same place they were in before they rented something from me when it comes to that small little space. This is the part that I have to get them to understand, right? You're either part of the solution or you're part of the problem. If you want your problems to change, you have to work towards it, right? And if opportunity comes knocking, even if you don't think that it's like, well, you haven't been successful for 25 years with your nonprofit. How dare you come to us and act like you know this and you know that, and you can accomplish this and you can accomplish that when you don't even have anything to show for it? Well, actually, I do. I've done park events. I've done this. I've done that. Da, 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 da. Doesn't mean I haven't been successful along the way. It just means that I live in a very competitive society where there's either corruption that I'm facing, I'm facing racism on multiple levels in terms of organized religion, governmental institutional racism, and then of course there's just people with their own prejudices and biases, and some are bigots, and so right. But at the end of the day, I can still come to you and say, look, we can do this, we can do this, we can do that, but don't expect me to do everything by myself. And if you're not comfortable with your situation, and you don't have no place to live, or or whatever, or whatever, and you can see that where the economy is going is just going to make it harder for you and your family and friends, and well, then that's where you guys need to come together and start putting together an envelope with some words written in there, preferably by you, not by a freaking Android. Forget about the Androids and the what is that called? AI crap, because they're not your friend. Stop it. I don't want to chatter over you. Tap into your own brain. You develop your own skills, because those skills will follow you for the rest of your life. Even when you feel defeated, you'll still be able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and attempt to do it again and again and again. Success isn't measured by how much money you have, okay? Unless, of course, you're a freaking addict to money and you're always looking for that high. But sooner or later, you're going to crash when the money's not there. So don't ever say just because you have money, somehow you're better than the one that's addicted to cocaine, because you're both fucking crashing when you don't have what you want and what you think you need. And you don't feel good until you get the money or the cocaine. So in comparison to the, what is that, the psychological and the physiological aspect of your body and how your body reacts to stimulants, there is no difference between the two. You're both addicts. So don't throw money in my face by saying, well, I'm more successful than you because you can't get the foundation up and up off the ground. You've had 25 years to do it. Yeah, but if you notice, I'm still here after 25 years with that opportunity knocking on the door. So here's your chance, because I'm in a very unique position. Did I ever expect myself to be in this position in terms of what I'm dealing with right now in this house? No. Never seen this coming. Never seen this coming. I would never have thought I'd be in this position, but I am. And it's not a bad thing to be thinking about making masks with old paper in a bag and whatever, if it helps somebody to just ground themselves, discover that they have a skill and that they enjoy doing what they're doing, so that they can at some point in the future take it to the next level on their own time, right? And might become some famous artist that makes beautiful masks that everybody wants to buy. And even if they can't do that to sell and become famous while making masks, I'm just using that as an example, right? Because this is simple craft. Well, actually, it's not. It can get very complicated. Doesn't mean that skill can't develop into something else. Just like I want to get into drum making. You go into my website on the different pages, right? Now I don't remember if it's written right into the Constitution. I don't think so. But it is written into program development years and years and years and years and years when right, almost right from the very get-go. I wanted to get into I didn't what I don't maybe making drums, but I definitely wanted to import drums with the foundation into Canadian school systems from Africa, India, wherever, right? Import drums and then have those drums go into school systems where they could build onto their music programs within the schools, right? But of course, that didn't happen. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen, or at least that we can't make our own drums and build on program development around that whether we sell the drums, use the drums, donate the drums, it doesn't matter, but it's something that can be done. So I'm trying to motivate people to think about making drums because my son cuts trees. I said, well, I can get wood. I can get wood stumps. All I have to do is ask, right? Just tell me what kind of wood we need, and when my son is out and about doing whatever he does, he can bring back some wood stumps, and we can work on making drums, right? And then from there, obviously, the first 10 we'll use for ourselves. Or maybe they'll take home their own drum if they have a home, right? And then after that, who knows? Maybe that will be another means to help start generating some money for the foundation or whatever, program development. So, and now I've got people coming to me giving me suggestions on how to um, build on that program in terms of giving people the opportunity to work on their own drum in the way that they want to do it, by the type of drum that they want to make. So in other words, don't make 10 drums the same kind of drum with the same kind of wood with basically the same kind of sound. You want 10 drums that have been individually made by individuals in the manner that they want the drum to be made. So you're going to get different shapes and sizes and sounds. You would be more successful to do it that way than to force everybody to do it one way. So I take that to heart. So now I'm thinking about, okay, well, that's how we're going to build on drum making. Providing that the naysayers around me that make me feel like I'm being evicted from my house and being forced out into the streets allow me to do that and work on that, whether I'm quote unquote successful or not. If I want to make 10 drums, well, not me, but if I'd like to see 10 drums being made under program development while I continue to live in this house, so that after I leave or we get a grant approved and we can move that drum making into a quote unquote community center, then I can, for me, that's where I get my satisfaction. Because in 2003, when I was writing out program development and promoting the nonprofit and building on the website and yada, 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 it's written right there on the website somewhere that we were going to import drums from Africa and wherever. Because Punjabis and Indians like their drums too. And in those days, I wanted to have them go into the schools. The problem with that, though, is the schools, they don't foster their extracurriculum activities like they used to when I was young, right? They brought those extracurricular activities down to bare bones, where in the old days, shop, you'd actually go to class and work on building a motor. That was an extracurricular activity if you wanted to learn how to build motors for a car, right? They actually had functioning woodworking classes where it wasn't just come home with a small little thing. It was actually build things, right? Music was more available. Music classes were more available, right? They're not, the government's not investing money into extracurricular music music, like they used to, right? So why would they be interested in drums? Right? So of course they don't care, right? But on a community level, it can mean a lot. It can mean a lot. And on an individual level, especially for the ones that are making them, whether for themselves or for whatever other reason, it can mean a lot. So, anyway, I just wanted to talk about the foundation, just put it out there that I ain't giving up the good fight, right? At the top of my list is housing. I have to form a committee. Sooner or later, a committee has to come together of serious minded individuals and take it more serious, because if they think they got problems right now when it comes to no affordable housing, what do they expect in the future? Like, seriously. Like, how can our governments expect people just to roam, be nomads in Canada? Like, they're creating a nomad class, right? A gypsy class of individuals that are just roaming the tundra, right? Including elderly people. Like my friend, 70 years old, living in a house for over 30 years. You've got a big ass freaking sign, City of Surrey, property development. She's the one with the most nicest yard, but yet they put the sign right in front of her yard because they're going to tear down 7 houses in a row and build another ugly ass building that nobody can afford to move into within 10 years of that building falling apart. And not only are the buildings going to be falling apart, but they brought in these I don't know what they're called. There's some kind of heating cooling system that are built right into the buildings themselves, and they go from suite to suite to suite, and they're defective. They're defective. So as people are buying these suites, these condos or whatever the hell they're called, and they're starting to use the facility, the apartment, they're having to find they're finding out that this heating cooling system is defective, and it's costing them tens of thousands of dollars to try and either repair them or replace them because they can't be repaired. Thousands and thousands of condos that have been built have this problem in the province of British Columbia, Canada. Now, whether they're using the same heating cooling system, because it all falls under code now, right? City codes and this code and that code. So somebody's getting rich off of defective products, but it doesn't solve the housing crises for people that are on fixed incomes, however that income is fixed. Mm-mm. So it's like, there that has to be addressed. So I'm thinking, well, to lobby the government around that issue, and of course the provincial government will say it's the federal government that is the problem because they're the ones bringing in the high numbers of immigrants that are causing the problem, because the more people you have, the more you need housing. Um, but what is it? Uh, Charter of Human Rights. You know, like if you were to advocate, challenge, bring to the attention of, lobby a government to implement legislation where housing goes back to being a right versus a privilege where only some can afford to have it, while everybody else becomes a nomad on the tundra. What would you use as legislation to hold the government to account? The Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, I think it's called, Charter of Human Rights and Freedoms, that is supposed to be a number one key player when it comes to the types of issues that I'm talking about in terms of uh, putting people at risk by not ensuring that they have proper housing. The problem with that, though, is our court systems have taken it upon themselves to treat those types of charters, legislations, or whatever as obsolete and can simply sweep them under the carpet, where nothing basically changes except for maybe the desperation that's growing in the community. But when you're dealing with corruption, like illegal organ harvesting, human trafficking, whatever, that's where it becomes beneficial for those that are addicted to the money, like they're addicted to cocaine. To which puts me in a position that no matter what I do ends up being futile, pointless, because you can't compete with corruption, right? Especially when they justify it by saying it's good business. It stimulates the economy to rent gouge. It stimulates the economy to have overseas foreigners purchase, and corporations, realtor corporations, purchase housing where the local residents can't afford to either buy themselves because of the market being manipulated, right? Or through rent gouging. To which the federal government is playing into that system to make it worse for a whole lot of people. So there's nothing I can do to change all that. What I can do is just work in the immediate, bring in little programs, whatever they are, with the idea of bringing in a bigger program after a committee has been formed with more serious-minded individuals who take pride in what they do when it comes to building something. Yeah. So that's where my head's at with the foundation. I'm not giving up. No, not yet. I don't know. That's all I wanted to say. Really.